So it's Q&A time. I promised this for 15k and I'm getting it out just in time for 16k, which I can't thank you guys enough for. But let's just kick straight in with the questions. I got questions from Patreon, from YouTube comments on a video, from the YouTube discussion page and Twitter. So let's just jump straight in. The first one is from Britta on Patreon, one of pretty much my longest supporting patron. And she asks, I don't believe you have a pet, but if you could have one, what kind of animal companion would you like? I don't have a pet at the moment. I'm in a rental lease place. I have had many pets when I was much younger. You know, we had dogs, I had rats even, and most recently I actually had a collection of praying mantises. So I actually had a bunch of different species of that, and they were really awesome. I think they're one of the coolest creatures out there. I would definitely keep more of those, but it's actually quite a lot of more work than you would expect, and they die often during molting. So it's something that praying mantises do. It's something that some sea creatures do, and other insects as well. They have to basically break out of their old bodies to continue growing, and generally a mantis will do this 6 to 8 times depending on the species until they become fully grown adults. And quite often, unless the humidity is just right and the conditions are just right, they can get stuck and die and complications. So it's a lot more work than you might expect to keep some insects, and also feeding them is kind of annoying when they're younger because you have to use it with fruit flies, and it's incredibly hard to like cultivate fruit flies and then get them into a place where they can be eaten by mantises. So next questions are coming from Twitter. This is like a double question from Nameless600, a bit of a joke to start off with. Is it illegal in Australia to try and make a nest and live in a kangaroo's pouch? Yeah, I believe it is, although we eat kangaroos over here. We're like the only country on earth that eats the animals that are on our coat of arms. It would probably just come under animal cruelty, I'm sure. They're not like a super protected species or anything. And of course I've never done that. And also, legit question, are they considered vermin, much like deer in Midwestern USA? I don't believe they're considered vermin at all. No, they're considered a danger on country roads. If you run into a kangaroo, that can cause serious damage to your vehicle, possibly even death to you, and most likely death to the kangaroo. They're very solid creatures, but I don't think they're considered pests. And another more serious question from Nameless600 is, what are your thoughts on fan service in games? Is it necessary? Do you like it? Does it really add anything? I have absolutely no problem with fan service at all in games, and what some people consider fan service these days just makes me laugh. I mean, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, because some characters have enlarged boobs, that's fan service? No. Like, please, go and play Senran Kagura Peach Beach Splash and tell me that Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is fan servicey. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't understand the problem anybody has with it. It's there, unless it's literally detracting from the experience, which I don't understand how it could be. Because generally you will know what kind of game you're buying. If a game is chock full of it, then you just bought the wrong game. But a little bit of fan service here and there, it really is not a major problem. And now a couple from Punk Trash on Twitter. Hardest JRPG you've ever played? I mean, I really don't know. I saw, you know, I was collecting these questions, but I wanted to do these off the cuff, so the only real thought I gave it was the couple of seconds while I was doing screen grabs, and that's probably the one I've been thinking of the most, and I just don't know. I don't know. The way I play games is I generally will be over-leveled for things in JRPGs because I like to do all the little things. You know, like in Ni no Kuni 2, I stopped like progressing the story for ages just to do kingdom building, like for a long time. So I often do all the optional content, all the exploration, and just waste time. I often put off the end of a game if I'm playing personally, you know, not for review or anything, but if I'm playing a game personally, I will do everything I can to put off progressing the story sometimes. So I don't know if anything can be considered hard. I mean, you know, Dark Souls or Nioh, if they're considered JRPGs, which I think they are, that would be the hardest. And I really don't like those kind of games. I don't like the gameplay of those kind of games. I don't like constantly having to pay attention and be on the edge of my seat and have everything be hard. That's just not me. And biggest JRPG pet peeve. I did a video actually with Otaku Daikun a long time ago now, where we talked about our favorite things in JRPGs and our least favorite. And there was a couple of things in there, but they were sort of just my least favorite. I don't think I have a pet peeve. See, the thing with me is that I like almost everything in JRPGs. I like even things that most people would find annoying, I enjoy. And it's a thing that come up with Shining Resonance Refrain, right? Shining Resonance Refrain is most definitely a PlayStation 3 JRPG. It's a mid-tier PlayStation 3 JRPG that's just been remastered. But I really enjoy that. I really enjoyed that game. I really enjoy those kind of games. I like mid-tier PS3 JRPGs, even though they can be a little formulaic and the stories maybe aren't that great and maybe the combat isn't that good, but I like that kind of thing. I don't really have any major pet peeves in JRPGs. Maybe there's like a certain type of dungeon design, and it's generally water temples that are always have a ridiculously annoying mechanic. It does seem to be a continual thing where there will be a single dungeon in most JRPGs that has a really, really annoying or frustrating or tedious mechanic. That would probably be my biggest pet peeve. And this next question from Nichi on Twitter. If you could have a JRPG made just for you, what would it be like? Features, and what company would you commission to make it? I mean, that's a very big question, isn't it? It's tricky as well. I think immediately the company I would get to make it would be either Atlas or Bandai Namco, or the new studio that Hideo Baba has at Square Enix, Studio Estolia, possibly. I don't know what his game is going to turn out like, Project Prelude Room, but I really like everything that Hideo Baba has ever done, so I would trust him making a game for me. Now, what would it be like? I actually have been thinking about making a series of videos where I take a property that isn't a game, that I really like in my real life, and sort of try and turn it into a game. So if it was going to be totally original, it would definitely be turn-based, and it would be, you know, an older style, high fantasies type setting. It definitely wouldn't be your Final Fantasy 15. But if I could base it on something, I would love something like Iron Chef Japan. Having Iron Chef Japan turned into some kind of JRPG where you could like create your own Iron Chef and you could choose the cuisine that he was, and then you had to, the story was about becoming a proper Iron Chef. That would be amazing, because I love that show. I love all of their goddamn names. Iron Chef French, Hiroyuki Sakai, Iron Chef Chinese, Chen Kenichi, and Iron Chef Japanese, Masaharu Morimoto. I mean, it would be amazing to have a JRPG made out of that. Also, a JRPG made out of the old TV show, not this new reboot that's coming up, Charmed.
My wife needs a dress for the party tonight.
Something like this?
Classy, but too safe. I want Phoebe noticed. Not that noticed. Perfect.
Thank you. You sure you don't want to see that red number again?
Just save it, okay? I'm not interested. I'm a one-woman demon.
You're the boss.
I'll be in touch.
That is like one of my secret loves in real life, and I've watched that series through a quadrillion times, and I actually think that would make a brilliant JRPG.
Are you questioning my orders?
No, of course not.
Okay, and these are now from the community page. This is I put up on YouTube to ask if you guys had any questions for me. And we first got Arch Torco, prom, yes, no, please circle 1. You don't want me going to a prom, really? I don't think so. I mean, sure, why not? But somebody's gonna have to pay for my plane ticket. Serious one. Any favorite character archetypes you consistently find yourself gravitating towards in games? I mean, yeah, I have a very particular love of certain characters. I love an anti-hero, that is just who I am. I love a villain generally, that is also just who I am. My favorite characters, I have obsessions with certain characters, and characters that I'm obsessed with are Peter Baelish in Game of Thrones.
I have only loved one woman. Only one. My entire life. Your sister.
Seto Kaiba in Yu-Gi-Oh!, Vegeta in Dragon Ball Z, Gaius in Tales of Exilia. You know, these are the kinds of characters that I really love. Thranduil in The Hobbit.
The dwarves will be slaughtered.
Yes, they will die. Today, tomorrow, 1 year hence, 100 years from now. What does it matter? They are mortal.
Yeah, so it's always anti-heroes or villains for me. I'm not a goody two-shoes lover. Lordless Queen, what's your favorite most recent JRPG or what's your least favorite JRPG? So what's my favorite most recent JRPG? Octopath Traveler. I think it's as simple as that. I think it was tremendous. I still go back every now and then to get a couple of things in because the gameplay is so addictive. Yeah, I think that's my favorite most recent JRPG. You know, other ones there are just kind of the obvious ones. Nier Automata, which I absolutely loved, and Persona 5, and things like that. And what's my least favorite? That's really hard to say. I mean, probably over all time, it's just so tricky to say. There have definitely been worse games than the ones I'm about to say, but this is just the one that sticks in my head as probably my least favorite. That's not even that bad. But Final Fantasy VIII, it's definitely my least favorite Final Fantasy of that PS1 era, and I probably like Final Fantasy 13 more than it, and I probably had more fun in Final Fantasy 15, even though in retrospect, I hate Final Fantasy 15 for so many reasons, but probably Final Fantasy 8 is my least favorite, but that doesn't mean to say that I hate it or anything. It's just probably down the bottom of my list. Just be pumpkin, or just be a pumpkin as what's your favorite color, number, and shape. Our favorite color is purple. Favorite number is 7 or 47, and I don't know why. Shape? I don't know. Heart? Darkjet 505. How do you honestly feel about the Final Fantasy XI card game? I don't know if you mean Final Fantasy XI or Final Fantasy IX using those Roman numerals. Well, I didn't even know there was a card game in Final Fantasy XI. I mean, there probably was because it's an MMO, so they would have probably had a couple. I don't know about that one because I honestly haven't played it. It was very, very difficult to even consider playing Final Fantasy XI in Australia when it was out at the time. But Final Fantasy IX, on the other hand, Tetramaster is my favorite minigame in all of Final Fantasy, even though it is a horrible RNG-filled game. I love it. In fact, I actually have a real-life version of Tetramaster, which is awesome. It's one of my favorite things. It costs a lot of money. It only got released in like Germany or something a long time ago, but they're awesome. Tales of Brian. As a JRPG enthusiast and a VR enthusiast, I feel the PSVR could use a really solid VR JRPG game, maybe even an older one. What JRPG would you like to see as a VR JRPG? Okay, so I have a PSVR and I haven't used a whole lot of it. You know, generally games or generally JRPGs for PSVR are like only certain features are in PSVR. This is like Mega Dimension Neptunia. There is, however, something that I would like to be made into a full VR, and that's Danganronpa, because there is a Danganronpa VR demo, but it's only like 10 minutes long, but it's one of the coolest things I've actually played on PSVR so far. It's a really cool experience, and it would be amazing to turn that into a full game rather than just one trial sequence, because it was so great. Awkward but still tries. What got you into JRPGs in the first place? It's kind of hard to say. My best friend when I was in primary school, so going way back when we were like 7 or 8, he had a PlayStation 1, I didn't, but I went over to his house and he was playing Final Fantasy VII. And that was when I was like, wow, this is awesome, this looks amazing. Well, I mean, back when I was a kid, I was probably more like, this is sick, bro. Something like that. That's when I'd sort of started, and then when I got a PlayStation of my own, I got Final Fantasy IX, and Final Fantasy IX was probably when I first fell in love with the genre, and Final Fantasy IX continues to be one of my favorite games ever made. I remember when I first got the PlayStation 1 and I rented Final Fantasy IX, didn't have a memory card at the time, so I actually played through the opening sequence all the way till Dali over and over again like a million times, because I didn't have a memory card for a couple of weeks, and basically every time you turned off it obviously reset the game. So I remember like doing that opening segment all the way to Dali so many times, and I just yeah, that's basically what got me into it. It continued on with games like Tales of Symphonia when I had a GameCube, and just continues on to now. Jordan Labella asks, I don't know if you've previously answered this, but what is your favorite Xenoblade game and why? Xenoblade Chronicles X is my favorite Xeno game, full stop. I haven't played Xenogears or Xenosaga, and I have always meant to, so it was only sort of recently, probably about 6 months ago, I thought I should really go and play these other Xeno games, but then there were those rumors that there's possibly a HD trilogy coming, like they remade the .hack /GU games, and there was sort of a rumor that a Xeno collection was coming, and I just thought, well, I'll hold off, and because I would obviously rather play them in their new remastered versions than I would play the older ones. But if we don't get an announcement for that in by next year, then I'll just take the dive and go and play the other ones on their original platforms. But Xenoblade Chronicles X is my favorite so far. It sort of redefined what an open world game should be for me. I think the exploration was amazing, the world was amazing. I had so much fun. I sunk so many hours into that game, and it's still definitely my favorite Xenoblade so far. Jackalong Singalong, what's your favorite collecting monster games? The obvious ones, Pokemon. I've played Pokemon, since Red and Blue, and I still love all those games. The ones that, sort of out of left field, Shin Megami Tensei, that's more of a demon collecting game, but I love the mainline Shin Megami Tensei games, and even some of the spin-offs that I've played so far. I haven't played all of them, but they're all a lot of fun. And World of Final Fantasy too. I liked World of Final Fantasy more than any other game in 2016. It was my choice for Game of the Year in 2016, and it had a big monster collecting mechanic, and I loved it. Last place, what inspired you to become a YouTuber? It's kind of a long story, really. So, when I was a lot younger, I used to play World of Warcraft. I played World of Warcraft for a very long time, like 7 years, and I was in a World Top 500 guild at one time, even playing from Australia with bad latency. This was before we had local servers. I used to play on US Realms, and I did that. I played Ion for a good 2 years, and I was in one of the top guilds on there as well. So I played a lot of MMOs, and I used to watch a video show that wasn't on YouTube. It was just a video series called The MMO Report with Casey Schreiner. I think it was Casey Schreiner. But I used to love that show. I used to play a lot of MMOs, or mainly WoW and Ion and WildStar as well when I left WoW. And I used to love that show. It was like a news show, but it was all about MMO news. And at one stage, this is going back a little bit now, I thought I want to do a show called the Jrpg Report. That was before I even knew anything about YouTube, how to do it, what it meant. I didn't know how to edit videos, nothing. So I did that, and I made a couple of really bad videos that I don't think exist anymore. And I just let it be then. I just let it go. And then at one point, I ended up losing my job. And while I was looking for another one, you know, while I was unemployed, I thought, well, I'll just start making some videos. And I was making random videos, and eventually I sort of got a first break doing Final Fantasy Brave Exvius videos. And then after I stopped playing Brave Exvius, I just sort of continued on doing what I originally wanted to do, which was just a more broad JRPG channel. So there's JRPG news, but then there's also specific coverage and guides and gameplay and reviews and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, basically what inspired me to become a YouTuber was losing my job and having a lot of free time. And instead of, you know, lazing around doing nothing, I just decided to start making videos. Shadow Scythe 21 asks, do you prefer to play a JRPG in English or with Japanese voiceover? English, every time. There is no game that I've played that has had an English voiceover so bad that I wanted to change it. I don't mind playing a game with Japanese voiceover either. I don't mind playing it with Tales of Hearts R, because that only came with Japanese voiceover. I don't mind playing you know, any game that has only Japanese voiceover, but if there's an option, I always choose the one that I can understand. For me personally, that's more important than what some people who are purists think are important to them. I don't see a problem with English voiceover generally, especially not in this day and age. You know, I played Baten Kaitos, and that had one of the worst English voiceovers in the history of games, and still I would rather play that with an English voiceover than Japanese, because at this point it's just vaguely comical more than anything. But yeah, I would rather the one I can understand than the one that I might maybe get better emotion from, but I still can't understand it. So yeah, if the English is there, I'll play it in English. Now these last few are from my birthday video where I asked you guys to send in some questions if you had any. This one from Camping Grounds, question for the Q&A, why are you so sexy? This is actually, I mean, I wasn't really going to include this, but it is something that I guess I should probably bring up at one stage or another. I don't think I'm good looking at all. It's actually a problem that I've had for a very long time, and it's why this Q&A took longer to record than I normally would. I am way overweight at the moment, way more than I usually am. I've always been a bigger guy, but I'm probably 30 kilos heavier than I would feel comfortable at. And it's weight is a thing I've always struggled with. Depression is always a thing I've struggled with. My own image is something I've always struggled with for my entire life that I can remember. So it does put a smile on my face to see these kind of things. But yeah, if for any reason, if you know there's a couple of days break on videos, or you find me not doing face cam much, it's probably because I feel super down on myself. And it's just easier for me if I don't get on camera. El Nico asks, do you find being an Australian YouTuber has challenges or advantages? Okay, so, and you said timing of news content coming out versus availability. It can be both. So obviously there are challenges in that sometimes we do get games a lot later than other people. Sometimes we don't get games at all. In very limited cases, but it can happen. Sometimes, yes, big news will come out while I'm sleeping, but there are also times when big news could come out and I'm awake while the rest of you guys are sleeping over in the US. So there are advantages in both places there. Sometimes I'm one of the only people asking for a review code for certain games. I am, you know, in limited company in Australia for people that cover certain things, you know, especially niche games from NIS America and things like that, which, you know, get very limited releases over here. So yeah, there are advantages, there are disadvantages, but at the end of the day, I think there are advantages and disadvantages to being a YouTuber anywhere in the world, so you just do the best you can. And Wyatt, my question is, are streams dead? So, I was live streaming every week for a little while on Twitch. It is something I want to get back to at some point. A little bit of what I talked about earlier, body image and my current state of mind is a little bit hard for me at the moment to say I want to get on live stream all the time because I don't feel good about myself. But also, unfortunately, as much as I did love live streams, as much as I still do like doing live streams, it's not paying the bills. YouTube isn't quite paying the bills either, but it's getting close. I can almost make a living from YouTube, and so it's much more important for me to focus on doing that stuff now than it is to sort of, basically I'm starting from the bottom on Twitch, right? I am an affiliate, but it's still, way down the pecking order. I've got a couple of hundred followers and maybe a couple of subs on Twitch versus 16,000 subscribers and 300,000 plus video views a month. So it's definitely, it's hard for me to find the time at the moment, especially with the way I feel about myself in my current state. But I do hope that I can live stream, at least something like once a month, once every couple of weeks, something like that. I hope that I can do that soonish, but I'm just going to focus on the YouTube and getting me back into a state, a fit state, semi-fit state. Emily Cortad asks some questions. How old are you? I am 27, and I often have to think about that. I'm getting really damn old. Do I have a job outside of YouTube? So it's not like a, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday job or anything like that. I do IT tech work on the side, but it's under my own business, basically, and my own business also encompasses YouTube. So yes, I do things other than YouTube. And how did I become so interested in JRPGs? I think I sort of already answered that. It's been a lifelong thing, really, ever since I was 6 or 7, watching my friend play Final Fantasy VII, and then eventually getting a PlayStation and playing Final Fantasy IX for myself. And that wraps up the Q&A. I hope that I answered all you guys' questions. I hope they were satisfactory. I don't know how that turned out, but thanks so much for sending in your questions, guys. It was really awesome. As always, thanks for all your support. Thanks for watching my videos. Everything you guys do, it's really awesome. I absolutely love what I'm doing at the moment. So I'll see all you guys soon.